Top five favorite novels. BioPhoenix. Great question. You know I've been reading lately. So when it comes to novels, there are only two authors I've read that really impress me that I think are like S tier. There are other authors I think are more of like the A or B tier, and then you can tell when an author's like really not a great writer or that's not their primary thing. Tends to put them in the C or D tier for me. So I've got like a couple books that I think are S tier, most of which are like A or B. But I'm going to start with the ones I think are really like just out of this world. Love them. My favorite authors are Isaac Asimov and Ursula Le Guin. Isaac Asimov's Foundation series is one of my favorite series and sci-fi books of all time. It's kind of this intergalactic civilization spread across time, and you see the effects of one generation's philosophy way in the future. You see it 3 books forward. And the plot twists are incredible. It's been years, maybe 5 years since I've read it, so I don't remember everything, but I remember loving it when I read it. I read like halfway through the 5th book, and things got in the way, so I didn't get to finish. But I'd love to reread up to that point, maybe finish all 7 in the series, and kind of give a holistic overview. Those are S tier to me. The first book does come under scrutiny a lot because there was a very small female presence in the first book. He changed that by the second book, but I think go men, first off. And then second, it's, you know what, I think I can overlook that. Because I'm a man, maybe, but because it's a good book, and like I still think that like the text is challenging my mind in an interesting way, and also I have to like, you know, this guy's like was like a sci-fi nerd writing magazine entries, you know, writing short stories for the magazines at the time this book came out. I think it was like originally magazine articles, and so like I'm gonna be gracious in a sense. You know, if you're a guy, you write about what you know about guys. Like, and so like, I mean, whatever. So it doesn't matter too much to me that. But needless to say, the future books really improve from there. A second book I would recommend from Asimov is actually nonfiction. And nonfiction is a little different for me because I don't know how often I would reread a nonfiction text. Oftentimes, I think I've learned the principles from them, but this one I would reread. It's called Asimovs Galaxy, and it's a publication of nonfiction essays that are basically guidance on creative writing, short story writing, especially for the magazines and the science fiction genre in general. A lot of interesting principles. I don't remember too many of them offhand, but I do remember him saying that like the best sci-fi stories are based off of real science. And, you know, I think that the text it offers good value and insight into creative writing and science fiction from a pro. This guy's written like 400 books. So, you know, and they're good. You know, I read another author I didn't like, Piers Anthony. He's written a ton of like fantasy books. And I read one and I was just like, no, I'm not doing this again. So it's a testament to how good he is. Cheers, Asimov. Your legacy lives strong. With Ursula Le Guin, I started off on her work through The Left Hand of Darkness for a sci-fi undergrad class in college. It was a great book at the time. I've tried to reread it. I've had trouble. But one of the books I really loved by her is called City of Illusions. And I just don't remember it exactly, like to a T. But I do remember it just being a mind-bending experience. Lathe of Heaven was similar. It had a lot to do with dreams. But I remember City of Illusions having this kind of great commentary about this guy, and like he's kind of like figuring out like some kind of mystery that he's involved in. She adopts that kind of like suspense and plot twist element that I love from Asimov super well. She passed away pretty recently, but she's got a great legacy, and I really like her work. For those who really like Lord of the Rings, they probably like her Earthsea series. I really need to commit to that, but it might be past my time. But City of Illusions, you know, actually, my local library, I saw it again recently on the shelves, but to buy this book online, the last I checked, it was like $200. That's nuts. Do not pay $200 to read this book. I will take it out of the library again, and I will record an audiobook. That's what I have to do just to get this book out there so you can access it freely. But yeah, just a top writer for me. The other two, because I've said three so far, books that are in my top 5 favorite books are nonfiction. And they're not ones I would reread, but they're ones that I think offer a lot of value to your life. The first is Digital Minimalism. I read this at a time where I was really struggling with smartphone addiction and internet addiction and screen addiction. And the book challenged me to put these things down. Now, you probably won't like a lot of the takes in this book. If you're like vested into things like social media or electronics in general, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to accept what the author's telling you. He basically says social media is a waste of time, and that anybody who says why they say they have Facebook is saying they have it to keep in touch with people, when 90% of the time you're on Facebook, you're not actually keeping in touch with people. You're just sitting there scrolling through news feeds and liking random shit. So that opinion is abrasive, and a lot of people probably wouldn't like that. I love that. Like I was like, all right, let's delete Facebook, the second I saw that. But I took a lot of value from it because that came during the pandemic era when I read this, and it challenged me to become more aware of my technical consumption habits. I think I was in a space where I was like, I knew I needed to put it down. I knew I needed to stop it for a sec. And I'll be honest, I don't think I followed the things in this book to a T, but I did do things like not looking at my comment section. I deactivated my social media, some of which I never reactivated. I went out for walks more. I didn't put my headphones in when I was going for walks. And it's changed my mind a lot on just my relationship with technology. Now, I still slip into habits. I still refresh subscription feeds and stuff a lot, like on YouTube. YouTube is still my number one guilty pleasure. But I think the book is good to read if you feel like you haven't challenged yourself in that way. So Digital Minimalism was very helpful for me. Another book that was really helpful for me is called 10% Happier by Dan Harris. There's a subtitle to it. I don't remember, but essentially the claim is that, we look for these shortcuts and how to be super happy or live a meaningful life. And his arguments, you can't exactly do that 100%, but if you take the right steps, you can be 10% happier. And a little background on the guy, he was a news reporter, and it's one of those environments that's I think he described it as toxic, where he's, always going up against people and trying to fight for the biggest story or the headlines and stuff. And so it's draining on him. It was draining in his relationships. He's always thinking about this stuff. He was in Afghanistan. He was suffering PTSD. And then he had a trauma attack on national television or local television. And it just changed him. And he went on retreats, meditation retreats, and learned kind of past the hokey stuff of meditation and yoga culture into what can you actually do to, get some of these negative thoughts out of your mind. And as somebody who definitely has negative thoughts a lot, I took a lot from that book. He goes more into detail about it in the book, but essentially, if you remind yourself that these are just thoughts and these are not you, then you will be on the path to dealing with your negativity better. And if you just apply simple strategies, like when you start having or going into these spirals of negativity, just say the word breathe. You breathe in, you breathe out. He challenges you to do 5 minutes of meditation a day. And, it's where you do exactly that. You don't got to do the hokey, sit in the pose. You just get however comfortable you are. Just be aware of your body posture. Breathing in, breathing out, erasing negativity. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself if you start going off. And, I don't know. That was so helpful for me because I felt like I needed that kind of toolbox. And I really like that book. So there you have it. 5 novels / nonfiction that are Majora T certified, recommended. I loved them. And I think you will too if these sound appealing to you. So take your pick. BioPhoenix. Thanks for the question.